If you were to look at the 5-on-5 stats below without knowing what teams they were, could you, with 100% confidence, be able to tell them apart? At the surface, they don't look very different from one another. Slight advantage to Team A. But what if I told you that Team A was the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, and Team B was the New Jersey Devils? Despite finishing with the 5th worst record in the NHL last season, the Devils punched way above their weight class when it came to their 5-on-5 production, ending the regular season with the 14th highest expected goals for percentage in the league. That was good enough to sandwich them in between teams that made the playoffs last season, like the Oilers and Capitals. And in fact, every team above them except Vegas was a playoff team. And even Vegas finished north of 90 points. Yet, New Jersey was in contention for the draft lottery, not the playoffs. What ultimately sunk the 2022 Devils, despite their decently good 5-on-5 play, would be their abysmal power play and some of the worst goaltending in the NHL. But it doesn't have to stay that way. And given some improvements in those departments beginning this season or in the seasons to come, the New Jersey Devils might return to being the once feared force to be reckoned with. First ticket on the agenda, fixing the goaltending situation. To say Devils' goaltending was bad last season would be a tremendous understatement. They weren't just bad, it was astronomically bad. They had the second worst overall save percentage in the league at .881, and the worst save percentage in the league at 5-on-5 with a .905. Goaltending just wasn't cutting it, constantly putting the team in holes they couldn't dig themselves out of. For reference, this past season the average team got at or above 900 goaltending in about 48 of their games. The Devils only got at or above 900 goaltending in 34 of their games. Good for dead last in the league. But in those 34 games that the Devils did get at or above 900 goaltending, they went 20-11-3 with a points percentage of .632%. That's not bad, especially considering those 34 games accounted for 74% of their season win total. And it's a sign that with competent and consistent goaltending, the team could be much higher in the standings. The Devils hope that Vitek Vanacek can be part of the solution to their problem, as his .926 save percentage at 5-on-5 was better than any goalie that suited up for the Devils last season, and his overall save percentage of .908 would be a massive improvement for a team that's gotten used to a save percentage starting with an 8. A rebound season from Mackenzie Blackwood would be monumental as well. He's battled injuries throughout his career, but he's shown flashes in the past when healthy. An analysis by @CJTDevil found that before suffering an injury, Blackwood was a substantially above average goaltender in 2019 and 2021, with a 2.14 and 2.69% save percentage over expected, respectively. Just imagine how good this Devils team can be with substantially above average goaltending in front of them. And clearly the Devils' brain trust aren't willing to give up on Blackwood just yet. Should the duo of Vanacek and Blackwood not pan out, however, come next offseason, priority number 1 should be to make an aggressive push for a starting goaltender however possible, whether that be by free agency or trade. This is a Devils team that is getting ready to make that push to the next step, and they cannot afford to keep getting dragged down by subpar goaltending. And if a scenario materializes where they are in the position to acquire a solid goaltender, the Devils have to make that move. Next item on the list, putting some fear back into the team's lackluster power play. For a team that was good at 5-on-5, the Devils were anything but when on the man advantage under Mark Rickey, as the Devils sported the 5th worst power play in the league last season and never finished above 16% as a unit in the past 2 seasons. Moving on from Rickey allows the Devils to try out a new vision for the power play, one that'll hopefully do a better job of supplementing their strong 5-on-5 play instead of killing the team's momentum. Brought on to oversee this new Devils power play is none other than former Jack Adams finalist Andrew Brunette, whose Panthers power play ranked top 5 in the league in the regular season last year. If Brunette can get the Devils power play back to or even above league average, that would be a huge victory. Consider that the Devils last season scored 35 power play goals on 225 opportunities. But with an average power play and assuming the same amount of opportunities, they would have scored around 45 power play goals, or about 10 more in total. That doesn't seem that significant, but the Devils scored a total of 245 goals last season, and an additional 10 would have put them at a total of 255. Only 17 teams scored 250 or more goals last season, and out of those 17, 14 made the playoffs. Couple an improved power play with better goaltending, and quite frankly, the goal support is there for the Devils to be a playoff team. Should the Devils falter out of the gate and a head coaching change made, Brunette is waiting in the wings to take the job and potentially run with it. After all, who better to take over the reins than the man who led the Panthers to their first President's Trophy in franchise history while carrying an interim tag? With only 1 year remaining on Lindy Ruff's contract, it might not be much of a surprise if the franchise plans to move on to Brunette at some point in the future, whether that is after a regular season skid or next offseason. Ultimately, the Devils have gone about building their team the right way, through the draft and developing their young talent from within. In fact, the Devils were the youngest team in the league last offseason with an average age of 25.8 years old. That's not to say the team is entirely young guys, as the team did bring in guys like Andre Palat this past offseason and Dougie Hamilton the offseason before that to help supplement the roster. But other than a handful of guys, most of the core and cavalry upcoming is young. Studs like Hughes, Heischer, and Bratt line out the top 3-point getters for the club last season, but the team also got significant contributions from guys like Igor Sharangovich and Dawson Mercer. Every one of those names listed are all players under the age of 25, and as such, some might not even be fully in their prime yet and will only continue to get better. In the pipeline are guys like Alex Holtz, who's projected to become a top-line player, Hobey Baker finalist Luke Hughes, who will be a top-pairing defenseman one day, and second overall pick Simon Nemec, just to name a few. While development isn't always linear and nobody can predict the future, just pretend for a second what a Devils team that already boasts great young talent will be able to do when they add guys like Holtz, Luke Hughes, and Nemec in the future, and they pan out as they're projected to be. They're going to be great, and they're going to be great for a long time in that scenario. Add in that the salary cap is projected to increase in the upcoming years, and the Devils will be able to afford extensions for most, if not all, of their young stars, and even possibly add more supplemental talent in free agency to push the team over the top when they enter their competing window. They already locked up Jack Hughes and captain Nico Hischier to long-term extensions, and as long as the duo of former first overall picks continue to get better and better, they are going to be well worth their cap hits in gold, underpaid even. Perhaps the dark times for the Devils are finally coming to an end, and we are about to enter a new era of Devils hockey. Who wouldn't love to see the rivalry with the Rangers renewed through a new series of playoff battles over the upcoming years between the two bitter rivals? It'd be must-watch television. Or maybe it was all just a mirage and the Devils are doomed to a few more years of darkness. It really does kind of feel like the Devils could swing either way on the pendulum, possibly pushing for a wildcard spot this year or finishing at the bottom of the league again. We'll just have to wait and see what ends up coming to fruition. At a glance, it looks like the Devils have the pieces to build something great, but now they have to move forward and begin to actually build that winning culture. That starts by putting themselves in the position to play meaningful games late in the season again, then it progresses into playoff contention, and maybe, before we know it, we'll be seeing the New Jersey Devils back in the Cup final.